ladies and gents. And so your favorite math teacher. Right, guys, this week, at the end of last week, I taught you trinomials, okay? And how weird that sounds. That's only going to happen tomorrow because I'm recording this lesson before on Thursday. But anyway, you would have heard me talk about trinomials. We would have done it. But I thought, look, I'll just record another video because I know it's a tough topic. So this week coming now, you can listen to this video to just remind you how this thing works. And this is where we start. So we start here. We have x plus 2 times x minus 3. Now, what are we doing here? We're not factorizing. Okay? Here, if I give you something like this, I'll ask you to simplify. So what we're doing was we're foiling. Okay? We're timing that by that by that. Give another color here. And that by this, and that by that. Okay? And what do we get? We get x squared plus 3x plus 2x plus 6. Okay? Just multiply all these pairs. Okay? Then I need to see, I can do something here. 3x plus 2x, I can add them. I can't add x squared and 6, that's different. So the final answer is x squared plus 5x plus 6. Okay? That's simplified. Now sometime I'll ask you to do the opposite. So sometime I'm going to ask you to factorize, but not that. I'll ask you to factorize this. X squared plus 5x plus 6. Okay? Factorize. Remember, factorize is taking something plus something plus something and turn it into something times something. Okay? So obviously, I know from here I went to there, so I can go back. Okay? If x plus 2, okay, times x plus 3, x plus 2 times x plus 3 equal to x squared plus 5x plus 6, then I can obviously say that x squared plus 5x plus 6 is equal to x plus 2 times x plus 3. Okay? But now, how would I know that if I didn't have that exercise before? Okay? So I can, for example, find, okay, I'll just pause you for a second. So I, for example, would like you to, let's say, factorize this triangle. X squared plus 9x plus 8. I want it, in other words, to write down something times something. And how would I do it? So let's have a look at what we can see here. We can see, first of all, we've got x and x. So that's quite simple. Okay? Next thing, we can see that we have a number plus a number plus a number. We will start. When we have just plus and plus, we will have plus and plus here. We're going to look at more complicated situation later. So I'm looking for two numbers. Now, if you multiply them, you'll get 6. Okay? So those two numbers, the two numbers that I'm looking for, if I multiply them, I get 6. And those two numbers, if I add them, I get 5. Okay? So that's the trick. Okay? Let's erase it and try and figure it out again. So I've got two numbers here. Okay? Let's say I didn't know about that they're 2 and 3. I'm looking for two numbers that if you multiply them, you get 6. Okay? And when you add them, you get the 5. This is the rule. Okay? We want to look at the number at the end. Okay? And those two numbers will multiply to that free number. And if you add them, you get the number which is next to x. The answer is obviously 2 and 3. Okay? And by the way, it doesn't matter if you write, instead of x plus 2 times x plus 3, you write x plus 3 times x plus 2. That's the same thing. Okay? Now let's try and do the same here. Okay? So first time I want to factorize, I'm going to write x and x, because you can see x times x is x squared. Now I'm looking, I'll write plus and plus. I'm looking for two numbers that if you multiply them, you will get the free number, which is 8. And if you add them, you'll get 9. Now, I tend to do it in the head, but especially in the beginning, I recommend that you'll do it, you'll write down. So you will look at, two numbers, okay? Write these two numbers. If I multiply them, there must be 8. And if you add these two numbers, they must be equal to 9. Okay? Now, when I do that, then you can start thinking about pairs. What kind of pairs, if you multiply and you get 8? Well, there's basically two numbers. 1. Okay? I can either do 1 times 8, or I can say 4 times 2. There's two options, okay? How can I get 8? It's either if I multiply 1 by 8 or 4 by 2. Now, if I write 4 plus plus 2. Is 4 plus 2 equal 9? Of course not, it's 6. So let's try the other pair. Okay? 1 and 8. Is 1 and 8 equal 9? Yes, that is true. Okay? So that is not the pair of numbers that I need. The number I need are 1 and 8. So I'm going to write here x plus 1, x plus 8. And that's the answer. Okay? We'll check it one last time. 1 times 8 is 8. 1 plus 8, 9. Right, I'll pause here and we'll move on to a bit more difficult problem. Okay, the next situation is where I've got x still x squared, but instead of a plus something with x, I've got a minus. So I've got a minus here, but still a plus there. So it starts the same thing. I'm going to write at, okay, I'm factorizing here. So I'm going to write x and x, because I know x times x is x squared. And now again, I'm looking for two numbers. Now when I multiply these two numbers, I will get 6, right? When I multiply, I need to get that free number. So I can think of 2 times 3 or 6 times 1, right? These are the two options. But, there's a big but. When I'm adding them, I need to get minus 5. Now if I just add 2 plus 3, well, we'll get 5. And if I get 6 plus 1, I'll get 7. And I can't get minus 5. So obviously, in this case, both of these numbers have to be negative. Okay? Why can't one be negative and one positive? Okay? Because if one was negative and the other one was positive, then it will be equal to negative 6. So because I've got a positive number here, positive 6, either they're both negative or they're both positive, right? Negative times negative is positive. But when I add them, I get negative numbers, so therefore they both need to be negative. Okay? So it's minus 3 times minus 2, which is equal to 6. Minus 2 minus 3 is minus 5. Minus 6 times minus 1 is also 6. But minus 6 minus 1 is minus 7. So which pair of numbers is the correct one? Well, that's going to be those two. Because they multiply, well, both of these pairs multiply to 6, but these add up to minus 5, which is what we want. So the answer is going to be now minus 2 times x minus 3. That's the answer. Okay, let's move on to the next example. Right, now we've got a positive in that middle term, but we've got a negative in this middle term. Okay? So let's start with what's obvious. We're going to have two brackets, and we're going to have an x and x, because x times x is x squared. Now let's think about the two numbers that we are multiplying by each other. They need to be equal to that free number, which is minus 7. Right? Now if you multiply two numbers, if you get a negative number, that means one is positive and the other negative. They can't be both positive and both negative, because that will give you a positive answer. So one is positive, one is negative. We're going to remember that. Okay? One positive, one negative. If you add these two numbers, what do we have to get? 6. Okay? So let's think about factors of minus 7 or factor of 7. Well, there's only really one pair, or I guess 2. Okay? So either it's going to be 1 times minus 7, right? 1 times minus 7 is minus 7, or it's going to be minus 1 times 7, right? We can swap the minus. Okay? Minus 1 times 7 is minus 7, and 1 times minus 7 is minus 7. So we need to try both of them, okay? If I do 1 minus 7, okay? 1 plus minus 7, is that going to be equal to 6? No, isn't it? It's going to be equal to minus 6. So that is not the one we want. Let's try our other pair, okay? Maybe minus 1 plus 7, those two. Is that going to give us 6? And the answer is yes. Minus 1 plus 7 is 6. Okay? So the two pairs of number are those. Okay? So we're going to have minus 1 plus 7. Okay? Let's try it again. Minus 1 times 7 is minus 7. Minus 1 plus 7 is 6. One thing to maybe remember here, in these cases where you have a negative free number, obviously one will be positive, one will be negative. If that number in the middle, the one with the x, is positive, then the larger number must be positive and the smaller will be negative. So overall, when you add them, you'll get a positive number. Now we're going to look at the opposite, the other way. Okay, so the example I'm going to do now is very similar. So you've got x squared, instead of plus 6x, I'm going to have minus 6x, and still minus 7. Okay? So again, straight away I know that I'm going to have x, and I'm just trying to figure out what numbers I will have here. Okay? Now when I multiply these two numbers, we always get the free number, so we will get minus 7. So straight away I can think about two options I can multiply, two numbers I can multiply to get minus 7. Either it's going to be minus 7 times 1 or minus 1 times 7. I'm just swapping the minus. Okay? Both of them will get minus 7. Now to see which pair is the right one, we need to add them and see if we're going to get minus 6. So here we're going to try minus 7 plus 1. It's minus 7, just those two numbers. Minus 7 plus 1, is that going to be minus 6? That is correct. Okay? However, if I try those one, minus 1 plus 7, that's not going to be equal to 6, right? That's going to be equal to, that's not going to be equal to minus 6, that is going to be equal to 6. That's what solved the problem here. So in this case, that is wrong, and we're going to use these two numbers, okay? So the answers will, let's write in black, okay? We're going to pick these numbers, it's going to be minus 7 plus 1, okay? Now, just to summarize here, okay, what I just told you, okay, these two are very similar. The only difference is that here we have positive and here we have negative. The free number is negative. If the free number is negative, then one of these numbers is positive, one is negative. Has to be. Because you multiply, you get a negative number. Now, how do you know which one gets the positive, the big one or the small one? Where this middle number here is positive, then the positive will be the bigger number, right? 7 is obviously larger than 1, and it will be positive. When the middle term is negative, it's actually the larger number which is negative, and the smaller number is positive. Hopefully that reminds you what we did last lesson. I'm going to do another lesson now where we get even more complicated. I just want, in this point, just to tell you something I told you in the class. Look, this whole trinomial is really, really difficult. It's really, really difficult. If you manage to score a mark here or there, awesome. But please don't hate yourself if you can't do it, because it's really difficult. I think that's probably the most difficult part of the whole grade 9 maths. And you know there's many difficult parts, but this one I would say trinomial is the hardest one. Okay, see you later.